Hi, gay is not sin, and Jesus is not asking the gay person to change and be straight. Kind of getting excited because next Monday I'm going to go here. Well, actually, I'm going to go where in the country that castle's at. It's going to be actually probably the end of the first week of December. I'll go here to this castle if it's not snowing. Don't know how the roads will be over there in Germany. Going to be driving, picking up my new car over there. Um, every once in a while, I'll do that. It's kind of interesting to go over there. I like to go some of the places that history has been made, and when I can go someplace where Bible history is made, it's even more exciting. I've been to Rome, been to a lot of the places that Paul went to Greece, went to Corinth, and there's a place in Corinth. It's called Ancient Corinth. It's at the foothill of Acrocorinth, which is not a mountain. It's a hill, but it's a pretty steep hill and fairly high hill. It's about 3 kilometers, however many miles that is, 4 or something, or maybe, yeah. Anyway, Paul wrote the book of Romans from ancient Corinth. I'm sure most of you, or a lot of you, should know that the book of Romans was written in Corinth by Paul. And finally, one year I did actually get to go over there. For a couple of years before that, I was using Google search and some other maps and looking at the top of that mountain there, because on the top of it is this temple called the Temple of Aphrodite. There's not much of it, a few blocks high, and it doesn't seem all that big. But in its glory days, it's thought to have had over 1,000 temple prostitutes. So I kind of was hoping or determined, if I got in those neck of the woods, that I would go there and hike up that mountain and do a program from there. And I actually did. You could see it by going to Seattle communitymedia.org and then pull down the menu that says Watch Now and select Gaze for Jesus. And when you go there, you'll see all my programs, and you can, there's a lot of pictures there that kind of helps you know what program there. And look down and you'll see the Temple of Aphrodite, and you can watch it at that temple. It's a really beautiful view up there because you're way up high, and you can see the sea over on this side, and you can see the other sea over on the Athens side. And so it's a really nice view, and you could, when you're standing on that Temple of Aphrodite, you can look down and you could see the Temple of Apollo in the center of ancient Corinth. So Paul could see the Temple of Apollo every time he looked out his window or walked downtown. And he could just kind of look up the mountain, he could see the Temple of Aphrodite. And still, it's amazing. You know, one of the messengers I have that I get a lot of activity on is Pal Talk. I have a room called Gaze for Jesus, and go figure. And it seems like an awful lot of people that go there are just about as homophobic as you can get. Even in this kind of a day, you would think it'd be getting a little better, but boy. That's one of the reasons that I went to Corinth, to point out the Temple of Aphrodite. Because this is what Paul was talking about when in Romans chapter 1. That these people, they're joining into these fertility religions, and they're having ritual orgies and going to the sodomites, which are male temple prostitutes. And on my website, gazesforjesus.com, you could see that there's one linked off to the um, left column that says Hebrew and Greek grammar. And you click on that, you can see the details of the verses there. And you see, Paul was talking about these fertility religions that too many Israelites, Hebrews, were going to try to engage in ritual sex to get blessings and so forth and so on. It wasn't so bad that the native Grecians were going to these temples, but the problem with Paul, it's understandable. The heathen world, the unbelieving world, not hardly going to be paying too much attention, perhaps, to Christian ideals. And it's actually not Christian ideals. It's God said, don't worship any other God. Don't bow down before any other God. I'm a jealous God. God treats religions, different religions, as not competitors, but as like a marriage. You're married to Him. You're engaged to Jesus Christ to get married to Him when you accept Jesus. And if you go play around with other gods, then that means you're cheating on God. So He tries to give you an idea how it feels to Him when you go to other gods. So Paul was telling us in Romans and also in 1 Corinthians 6:9 about he doesn't like him going around to other gods and worship them by ritualistic sex. So I enjoy going to these places where this actually happened and speaking about this when I'm there. In Athens, of course, had a number of temples. The main one, the Temple of Athena, which they call it the Pantheon or something like that up there. It's got the Temple of Zeus up there and so forth. It's kind of interesting place to go. And there's right outside it, there's kind of a big, huge rocky area, a big rock coming out of there, and you can climb up the rock. And over time, there's been a number of religious institutions on that rock, including some Christian churches. And Paul actually built a Christian church there, and he preached there. And this is where he said that they even have worship a statue to the unknown God. So I actually got to do a program there too, with the Acropolis behind me. So and get to go to Germany. The last time I went to there, I stopped off at the concentration camp and did a program there. That was pretty an emotional kind of place once you were done. This time I'm just going to go to some of these castles, which has a lot to do with also the history of Christianity. You had Catholics building their institutions, and you had the Protestants building their institutions. And so in the days that these were actually made, in this particular temple, King Ludwig or something like that, I think I read. Can't pronounce it even if that's who it was. About 6 months or so, 7 months before it was finished, he died. And but anyway, temples back in those days, not temples, castles back in those days were often a lot of persecution going on too, to Christians persecuting Christians. See, this is a very important part today, that Christians seem to like to persecute Christians. And today that's really, really, really rampant. You may not think so. If you're a red Christian or a blue Christian, you don't necessarily look that you're persecuting another Christian. But generally speaking, redneck type things, or red states, or whatever you want to call it, type Christian, it's their way or the highway. They try to say their way is God's way, or God's way is their way, but it isn't. They got some good theological messages for sure, but when it comes down to certain things, they don't got it. They're doing the same thing as the places in these temple people have done. Not temple again. Castle days. Persecuting saints. You don't abide our way, we're going to kick you out. And we're going to keep at you until you renege on what you're saying. And so the Protestants were not much different than the Catholics in you better tote the line. And so it is interesting and kind of cool going over to some of these places. And you know, I'm not like Rick Steves or anybody like that that goes there, can tell you a whole lot about these places. I just like to have the background there and just kind of generalize over some of the things. My whole business here is to try to get you to think. You're a Christian. You're not a persecutor. You're not a judge quite yet. You're going to be judging, even judging angels. That word judge is not necessarily what we would define judge in modern English. But often we don't have that ability very good. We got things that we like and what we don't like. And this is a lot of how we base our religious faith. If we like it and it feels good, it must be of God. You know, this sounds logical. It's just like we're having this trouble a couple of months ago. It might still be going on. Was he raising his hands? Well, there's all kinds of testimonies that says he was holding them out this way, or he was holding that this way. You know, no witnesses is right. Just like in Jesus' day, Jesus came up. They brought him before that head guy, and accused him, and no two witnesses could agree on the accusation against Jesus. Well, it sounded like that when they were given all the decision making and why they did it. It seemed like that all their witnesses who was given testimony all had a different story. And then it didn't matter. That's what gets you to, you know. They're already in momentum. They can't admit they're right or they can't admit they're wrong. They're already in this momentum. They're going to go out and do what they're going to do. And then you have, you see, we're living in the last days, so we got to have, that's built into the system of things, people that want to come do the damage. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's just an institution that's just trying to sell you something. They got to burn it down. And nothing to do with anything. Well, anyway. Rednecks, and a lot of blue necks too, Christians, want to judge things without getting the facts. Back there in Ferguson, they don't quite have all the facts. They're out on the street. How can they know what they are? And they got their little iPod in their hand, reading what's going on, listen to what's going on. They don't have time. They're out marching to try to hear the facts. To try to let's figure it out. Let's go over and get the need. It's going to take a day or so for all the different media get the information out to us or whatever. So we can make a decision. No, we got to go and do it now, tonight. But, you know, and Christians like to do. How could they say they're wrong? They're already in the push to go and do what they want to do. They're going to do it anyway. And Christians are often the same way. They got their belief, and that's just how it is. They're going to fight to the bitter end in some cases. There are Christians and state leaders that are saying they're basing this on their Christian faith. So they'll fight gays all the way. They'll try to prevent gay marriage. They'll do whatever it is because they think it's the Bible. And here I am. I'm trying to tell you, read the Bible. Where was Paul? You depend on Paul so much to condemn gays. He didn't condemn gays. He condemned heterosexual Hebrew men and women, mostly men, because they were going to other gods. They grew up, were taught of God, believed in God, obeyed the types of rules, and as they became adults, they started hearing these things. We got places, Paul talking, you hear, you got itchy ears, you hear all this thing. There's a place in Greece, I believe it was, that, and maybe it was Rome, but anyway, Paul got to go, he was going to be speaking, or he was being taken to, because he's accused of being a Christian. But anyway, he got to this one place, a big hall where everybody was meeting. They like to discuss things, the going cool things and religious talks and everything. And so Paul got to go and talk about Christianity a little on that. Because they all got itchy ears. Let's see what sounds good to do. And in a way, this is what Christians do. What sounds good, and we'll go for it. Because you don't like this or that. Liver tastes so bad. How could it be good for you if it's so terrible tasting? But it is good for you. Some people like it. I don't like it, but I'm not going to go around and preach liver's bad for you. Just because I don't like the taste of it. But this is what some Christians do. They don't like the idea of same-sex type of thing. They can't look at it as two people love each other. They can't look at it and say, well, here I am married, and the relationship we have is so wonderful and beautiful, and boy, you just go on and on and on. It's still going to be the same old kind of thing. You're just loving each other as it was, and doing all that. So, how come it's different if somebody else loves? And you say, you don't like it. So that means it's sin. Besides, Paul said it. And here I am. I don't think I'm wasting my time because I know there's a lot of changes that's happened since I started coming on TV and talking. Just about 3/4 of the United States. Except gay marriage now, legally. I mean, has legal marriage. So, when 3/4 of states agree, that's all it takes to change the whole law of the country. If they wanted to do that, they can say, well, 3/4 of the states is agreeing here, so we can make it all states. But so many of you are operating in your feelings, and you say this is God. No, it's not. It's God if you can read it in the Bible and understand what it is you're reading. You can't read a verse, man, doing what is vile, and you say, wow, that sounds so terrible. It's got to be nasty. Well, of course, if you ever went into a orgy room and seen all of these people, you would know what is meant by vile. As the Romans chapter 1, or book, Romans 1, verse 26, or actually 18 through 32, but you like to just break it down to 26 and 27. I mean, the whole verse there really explains a lot of things. At the end of it, it says that God gave him over to and he and lists a lot of things in 28 through 32. I'm going to read those things and and to do these things. A reprobate mind. Well, you got to figure out what your reprobate mind is. And then all these things that in themselves, it seem like, boy, we've all done those little things that are coming after that. How could they be so bad or whatever? But they're clumping them all together that generally speaking, they have general bad behavior. Has nothing to do with sex. If straight people, God said, okay, be gay. And then so they were gay. So then God said, now I'm going to make you so you behave in this kind of evil type of manner. So when you're not doing the evil kind of sex, you're going to behave evilly. I mean, you read verse 28 through 32. It goes through in a lot of detail of saying how the 700 million gays are supposed to be behaving in ordinary life. I mean, you can't take out 28 through 32 because you only wanted 26 and 27, which is not describing gay behavior at all, but you think it does, so you want just that verse. You don't want what it says, how they got to that point, because God gave them over. Why? Because they turned to other gods and so forth. They knew God. They're already an adult. They knew God. Now they want to check into these other gods. So God led them. And what does letting people do their thing mean? They're going to go join up in these fertility religions, which one of the part that they're looking at is these ritual orgies and stuff. You know, they say you get blessings out of that. And so these Hebrew men and women go to the ritual sexual rooms of these fertility temples. And so God let him do that. And then, so what needs to really be done is we need to go back to the day of Paul, and we need to track down all these people, these Hebrews that went to these fertility temples, that participated in these ritual orgies, and see if their behavior ended up being like 28 through 32. Nobody wants to take time to do any of that. It's so much easier to say 700 million gays are going to hell without hope in God. That makes it easy for that verse, doesn't it? Well, gays don't behave 28 through 32. And gays weren't straight to begin with. 700 million gays should be easy. You can go out there and ask them and plenty of people do. So the record's out there. You can find out. They kind of found out they were gay. They kind of discovered, they say, I don't understand. I should be liking the opposite sex. And, you know, but you don't know. You don't want to know. You know it, but you just think, you got to just stick with your tradition. Hate the gays. After all, it's been going on for 700 years. You just don't want to give that up. People give it up because God is giving you a lot of slack here. Boy, it seemed like God's waiting an awful long time. Come on, God, hurry up. But he's not. He says, I got my schedule and I want to get the message out. Are you listening? No, you're not listening. Something's going to happen. If you don't know Jesus right now, turn to him and say, Jesus, I believe you're the Son of God. Forgive me of my sins and come into my life. A simple prayer gets you saved because Jesus paid the price for your sin. Now read the King James Version Bible and get to know Jesus. Read it all. Ask Jesus to baptize your Holy Spirit. Read that Acts chapter 2. You know, Jesus heals. You hurt someplace. What kind of pain you got in your body? What kind of disease? What kind of thing? God heals. Jesus heals. By his stripes you are healed. Stripes mean that's when they whipped him those 40 times, 39 plus 1, or 39 stripes, 40 minus 1, however that saying goes, you're healed. Put your hand on that spot that hurts. Got your hand there. In the name of Jesus, be healed. Okay, next time I'm going to be saying, I'm probably going to be having programs done in Germany. See you then.